Now, our next talk will be by Mariateresa Pullano. She received her MA in Conservation of Cultural Heritage, and she has worked at the National Gallery of Ireland in Denmark, and now she is the paper conservator at the Gothenburg Museum of Art in Sweden. So thank you.
Thank you. I would like to start thanking the organizers for this wonderful opportunity, my co-authors, Katz, for the amazing collaboration, and finally, our director, Anna Hilse, for trust and enthusiasm. To introduce Picasso's Acrobat family, I will quote two of our former curators, Alfred Westholm and Nils Rindel, from the catalog The Gothenburg Art Gallery from 1952. The principal colors, contrasting with the blue basic tone of the Acrobat family, are rose, dark red, amber, and white. Moreover, there is in the dull color scheme an abundance of dark ochre derived from the undergrounded cardboard, on which the painting was executed with gouache. This is unquestionably an attentive description, which highlights the use of unpainted cardboard to achieve almost an optical illusion with Picasso's fluid and emotional drawing with intensive and vibrant brush strokes. The work, dated 1905, was created in Picasso's atelier at the Bateau Lavoir in Paris. Leo Stein brought it together with the girl with a basket of flowers. However, Gertrude Stein does not mention it specifically in her book, and it never appears on the wall together with the other Picasso works in their collection at Rue des Fleurs. So, where the Acrobat family was displayed. Looking at the Steins collect, Matisse, Picasso, and the Parisian avant-garde catalog, there are two pictures recording the display of the painting in 1907 and 1908 on the north wall of the apartment in Rue Madame, the address of Michael Stein, Leo and Gertrude's older brother, and his wife, Sarah. Leo Stein left Paris in 1916, leaving all his Picasso collection behind, including the Acrobat family, which by now was in the hands of Walter Halvorsen, a Norwegian artist, art collector, and another student of Matisse. He offered the work to the National Museum in Stockholm in 1917, but the National Museum passed the opportunity to buy it. Halvorsen sold it instead to Konrad Pinneus, a businessman and art collector from Gothenburg, and one of the greater art patrons in Sweden. Due to an unfortunate stock investment in 1920, Pinneus was forced to sell his French collection, offering the Acrobat family to our museum for 13,000 Swedish crowns in 1923. From this moment, the Acrobat family became, and still is, one of the highlights of the Gothenburg Museum of Art. For these and other reasons, realizing we did not have enough information about the conservation state of the work, we started to investigate its condition. One of the biggest concerns was that, by comparing the painting today with museum's archival photos and old catalogs pictures, the blue pigment in the background appeared to be severely discolored. However, to understand the reason for this discoloration, we needed to understand the pigment nature and its possible relation with the cardboard support degradation process. The analysis carried by Eleonora Papa showed that the cardboard is made of highly lignified mechanical wood pulp with some traces of wool and cotton, as was typical of low-quality cardboard. The cardboard is also slightly acidic. The most sensitive and degraded areas are the board's edges and corners, showing a delamination in the layered structure. Under direct light, the support shows no significant planar distortion. With raking light on the right side of, On the right side of the painting, a long crease is clearly visible. From different catalog sources, the artist's production on cardboard with oil paint seems mostly concentrated between 1900s to 1901, while between 1905 and 1906, the most common medium appears to be gouache. However, when we observe the work under diagonally direct and raking light, some areas appear to be shiny. These shiny areas suggested the use of a technique that included a greasy element, like oil paint. Therefore, our initial hypothesis was that the paint was made with gouache. This was confirmed by the matte general appearance, the unvarnished surface, and the look of the pigments under magnification, which were really embedded into the fibers, with a presence of holes left from water bubbles. So you can see the shiny area here, like a bit highlighted. In different works from this period, Picasso tried to achieve a matte surface, diluting oil paint, and this is documented in several studies. For example, quoting from the Girl in a Chemise by Pablo Picasso, Tate Papers, number 28, 2017, Picasso seems to have been experimenting with materials imitating the flat matteness of gouache with oil paint, working the surface doggedly until he had achieved the desired effect. Thinning paint with turpentine naturally leads to a matte paint, and here the paint was skillfully thinned to such a degree that it only just forms a coherent paint film, end quote. Also, in a technical note of the exhibition catalog Pablo Picasso, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the paper conservator and the research department at the Metropolitan Art Museum analyzed another work on cardboard from 1905, the Saltimbanque in profile. They found out how Picasso used a technique called essence, which consists of removing as much as possible the oil in the paint color with turpentine to achieve a transparent matte wash. In conclusion, after our research, we still asked ourselves, was Picasso also using the essence technique in our painting, and which type of blue pigment is fading? Could the cardboard degradation be accelerating the fading process? For this, we asked the help of CATS, the Center of Art for Art Technological Studies and Conservation of the National Gallery of Denmark, to carry out further research. But before I hand it over to David, I would like to shortly speak about what we discovered during the analysis. So, while working together after dismounting the painting from its original frame, the eye of Jørgen Wadum caught the fainted line of a drawing on the back. Not an easy thing to do because of his bad condition and the many damages made in the past. So among numbers, marks and other stains, we saw an unknown sketch. Highlighting the line with the help of infrared photos, we concluded, looking at the posture of the subject and similar profile, that the drawing could be related to other works representing Saltimbanque. Possibly the Saltimbanque family National Gallery of Washington. Our investigation regarding this work is not finished yet, so we will go further, trying to give a clear chronological frame to place it in relation with other works from the period. Now, David.
Hi. So to investigate the material composition and the technique used by Picasso, we moved from Denmark our small mobile laboratory, and I'm showing here some of the machine that we brought there, so XRF, FTIR, and force analysis, and I'm showing some of the setups that we adopted to investigate the painting. From the technique point of view, we detected two different types of binding media, and we could correlate the different binding medium with the different appearance of the surface. So the matte paint layer shows signal of a lipiding compound, possibly oil, while the shiny one shows signal of what we think could be a resin. What about the question posed by the conservators? Picasso used the essence technique in this specific case or not? Because the investigation of varnishes and binders using reflection FTIR is often challenging, we could not provide conclusive indications about the essence technique. And at the same time, we cannot exclude that other organic materials, binders, were used together with the resin and the lipiding compound. But on the other hand, from the palette point of view, we could provide lots of information because we detected several pigments used by Picasso alone or mixed together to create the final chromatic effect. And furthermore, we could see that almost for all the different colors, we saw at least two different types of formulation. One example, for example, is the white areas that are painted with two different types of lead white, one mainly containing hydrocerussite and the other one mainly containing cerussite. But since the blue and greenish areas underwent in the past the major discoloration, our analysis was mainly focused on studying the composition of the blue and green areas. So, two different blue pigments were used by Picasso. Looking at the infrared photo, you see here this very dark absorbing material that then turns dark blue-green in the false color, and this one is Prussian blue. The other one that is transparent in the infrared photo and turns red in false color is ultramarine, and both pigments were identified by force and FTIR analysis. The Prussian blue mixed with a yellow component, possibly a dye, was used by Picasso to paint the background at the back of the family, while the two pigments together were mixed to paint the curtain, especially in the lower part of the curtain. I'm reporting here a detail. You see the different shades of blues, and the two pigments, Prussian blue and ultramarine, were mixed together to create this effect. And looking at the profile, the first profile, we can also have an idea of the different amount of the two pigments mixed together. What about the upper part of the curtain? This is the highly faded area in the painting. You can barely see some of the blue brushstrokes here. This part of the curtain was mainly painted using ultramarine. The amount of Prussian blue is very, 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 very low. And you can also see here, looking at the force profile, that even on the highly faded areas, we still see a very weak absorption band of ultramarine. So, there is a long, long list of papers dealing with the fading of Prussian blue and ultramarine, because it's a well-known problem, and this problem is still not totally understood. So our current knowledge on the fading of Prussian blue is that the light exposure is the main cause, together with other factors like the presence of other compounds mixed with the blue pigment, the substrate, the environmental condition, and the manufacturing procedure. And we know that chemically there is a photoredox process. For what it concerns what is reported in the literature as ultramarine disease, there are two different theories. One is connected with the disintegration of the binding medium surrounding the blue particles. We have microcracks. The microcracks scatter the light, so we see the surface appearing patchy and whitish. The other theory is that we have a discoloration connected to both acidic and alkaline environment. So the exposure to acids and alkaline can break the cage framework and then trigger the release of the chromophores inside the cage that are responsible for the color. So, to conclude, and taking into consideration also what Mariateresa said about the acidity of the support and how degraded is the support, we think that several factors are responsible for the fading of the blue and green pigments that are the Prussian blue and the ultramarine on the Acrobat family. Some of the factors are internal factors, external factors, like the light, for example, that is the main problem for the Prussian blue. And other factors are, let's say, internal factors, like the pigment formulation, the presence of other compounds, the substrate, and the acidity of the substrate. That can be a problem, especially for the ultramarine. So regarding the acidity of the paper is something that we cannot control, that we cannot mitigate, because in this specific case, we cannot treat the support due to the presence of the paint layer. But the external factors are something that the museum can take care of. So control lighting is something that is already adopted in the museum. And another measure to control the external factor is the adoption of a microclimate frame to control from the fluctuation of the outside conditions and also from pollutants and so on. Obviously, it's not completely sealed because since we know that the support is slightly acidic, it's better not to completely seal the microclimate frame to have a sort of exchange with the external environment. So we would like to thank many people that have collaborated with us, and we would like to show a picture of Picasso with the T-shirt from Gothenburg. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the fascinating presentation. And my apologies, I didn't give a bio to you,
No
which is, but I just say that David Buti has a PhD in conservation science, and during his postdoc with the CNR ISTM of Perugia, he was involved with the EU project Charisma and had access to the Mole Lab. And from 2014 to now, he's been a researcher at CATS at the National Gallery of Denmark. So thank you. Now, are there any questions? Any questions at all? There's so many parts of this work. Yeah.
That was a very nice presentation. I'm curious if the cause of the degradation of the ultramarine were, say, the opposite, not the loss of the pigment through the destruction of the soda cell, but actually from the binder degradation. If you re-wet the surface, do you get the color back, resaturated with typical, or maybe that's not possible because you're on paper?
We didn't try that, no.
Yeah, I know that René Delary has shown that in the cases where they had degradation of the media, that you could resaturate the color back by adding some solvent or something.
No, but maybe we can look into that.
I think that it's something that maybe can be done with an oil paint, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
Any other? We have time for another question.
Thank you. I was just wondering, is it a good idea to put it in a microclimate frame? I was thinking if there would be more and more acidity accumulating in such a frame.
I mean, this is something that we have taken into consideration. That's why, as I said, it was not totally sealed. And then there is also active carbon close inside, trying to balance in a way. This is something that we have taken into consideration, especially, I mean, if you think about old projects like the propane, this was one of the topics of the project. So this is something that we, and the museum, has considered it.
No, so we try to also kind of like plan to open periodically, so we can have exchange effect. So this is also something we are kind of like planning to do for the future. So we kind of like monitor the painting now more steadily.
Just one quick question.
I think you just answered, but just about monitoring. I was wondering if this is something you are taking into consideration for the fading and for the acidity as well of the support. Do you have any plan for that?
Yeah, we are like we applied for another project, another collaboration. We didn't get the answer yet. So for us, it's always since we are not we are the third museum in Sweden, but under the municipality. So to get funds, and it's not always easy, but we applied for another project, so finger crossed.
So let me say that it's not very easy for them since they don't have a lab to monitor the fading constantly, or probably on a long term, because, I mean, we are from Denmark, so they had to call us to monitor to investigate the painting conditions. So it's not very easy, let's say.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.